Hello and welcome to Pick Up the Mic. Harvest Church's, for now, only official website or podcast, but I hear whispers. I hear whispers. I can't tell you anything.
You know what they say about rumors. You can't believe rumors, Mike.
No, it depends on who tells them.
I guess
I
that's
got
true.
this from an inside source. Cash Patel called me.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and Dan Bongino. They said, hey.
that Dan Bongino and Cash Patel are less reliable than
I
once thought they were.
You know, they've been trying to get news out about a second podcast, but the Attorney General said, no, don't tell anyone. And Dan was really mad. He almost quit. But I think, let's just say stay tuned. I'm going to leave it at that. Hey, and I'm with my faithful sidekick, Will Land. But I want you to know, Will, I was looking on YouTube and I saw that the shows that get most listens are the ones with Isaac on them.
He is better looking than both of us.
I think it's cousins.
You think it's because he's got so many cousins?
Yeah, or he puts it on repeat, just keeps watching it himself over and over.
Oh, he's like pumping up his own numbers.
Yeah, and gets his buddies to do it. But that reminds me that I got to remind you guys. I'll see, like, one of them had like 260 views and had like 9 likes, which means there's 251 people not hitting the like button.
Maybe they didn't like it.
How hard is it to click on the like button, my friend? For goodness sake, if you don't do it, Sunshine is going to come find you and give you melanoma because she is the sunshine, and that's what Sunshine gives.
That's a good pun or joke.
Yeah, I'm way ahead of this. And so, also, if you're an avid listener and want to send in a question, I forgot how to do it besides email, but how do you do that again?
There's a link in the description. Somebody actually texted me about it last week and was like, how do you submit a question?
Yeah, in the description of every video. We're getting more and more sophisticated by the day. So when we do book recommendations, we're trying to actually like put links to the book recommendations now. Sometimes we talk about books.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and there's a link in the description to ask a question of the podcast and a link to the website and other stuff like that. So look in the description.
These our producers here just keep making this product better and better and better and better, and it's going to keep happening because they asked they noticed that your side, Will, of the place never had any decorations. The ones you had, I had to put up, and so now they asked Will to bring something special to him, something that reminded him of his mom and love, and so he's bringing in a dead animal head, a noseless dead animal head.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him mounted. I don't know, somewhere on my side.
He says it reminds him of his mother, so that's why that's what he likes.
Yeah, it's a pretty killer mule deer.
Dude, we're moving to straight redneck.
It's a mule deer skull.
Why not just get a Pabst Blue Ribbon sign now and put it up there? I'll tell you.
Dude, Bush. We'll get a Bush.
No.
Bush beer.
Bush is made by Anheuser. We can't go there.
Can't go there.
That's gay beer now.
Yeah, but that was always the redneck brand.
They call it queer beer.
Oh, queer beer. Anyway, yeah, there's a mountain lion kill I found in Montana on a trip. It's awesome.
So
it has been prominently displayed in my house before.
So the mountain lion is a better hunter than you. You are such a humble hunter. What a humble hunter. He is bringing that in, saying, I didn't kill it. An animal in nature killed it for me.
Yeah. It's one of my prized possessions, to be honest, even though I didn't kill it myself.
Yeah, he's cute.
He's legit. My wife calls him trailer trash.
So say what you want. They don't go to dentists, and look at all those great teeth he still has. I mean, they don't brush their teeth or nothing. So I was leaving home today, and there was a raccoon laying dead beside my walkway. And in this heat, you got to get rid of them. In the winter,
yeah, they bloat.
In the winter, it's not as bad. I don't care if they bloat. They start to smell like maggots.
You care if they bloat once they blow up?
No, it's the maggots. I don't like the maggots. The smell of maggots, they really smell bad. Do you know you can eat them and live, but they don't smell good.
In the old days, they used to, if Gladiator taught me anything, which I believe is where I'm getting this fact I'm about to say as if it's
fact. This will be good.
But in the movie Gladiator, they use maggots to clean wounds.
I saw that. That's right. And they might have. I don't know. I know you can eat them in a pinch. I'm not going to because they stink.
Oh, you want a gross? last week. No, 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, before I was on vacation, my neighbor across the street was at Ocean City, and he forgot to put his trash out. So he called me. He's like, "Can you go get my trash can?" And so I go into his garage, I wheel his trash can down, his trash just stinks. And I take it to the bottom of the driveway, and the lid kind of needs adjusting, and I adjust the lid, and maggots just start coming out of the top by the thousands. Like they're raining down the side. It was so gross.
And they all turn into houseflies.
And you know what I ate 30 minutes later? Rice.
Spaghetti. Oh, rice.
And I couldn't get the image out of my head. It was bad.
Rice are like little maggots.
It was bad.
So maggots turn into flies.
I know.
And my wife hates flies in the house, especially, and so did my mother. My mother would just go after them. And
I do too. They're very annoying. They're off-putting.
But if you realize what an improvement they are over their own children, I mean, at least they don't stink like a maggot.
We had a meeting the other night, and I don't know if you noticed, there was a fly in the room. It was driving my OCD brain crazy.
I don't like flies a lot, but last night, 2 of them landed on our flat screen TV, and they just wouldn't move. And then I got the swatter, but you want to kill it without smishing it all over your flat screen TV.
Yeah.
Or any TV. But flies are, to me, one of the most remarkable proofs that evolution is for stupid people. I know it sounds arrogant
to say that. Not allowed to use that word anymore, Mike.
Yes, well, I can hear. I can't say it in the sermons because children are listening. But I know we're supposed to think you're brilliant if you believe in evolution. But just look at any housefly, and you just walk me through how that happened all by accident. First, you won't find a fossil record to prove that it happened by accident because there's no transitionary fossils to show that it actually happened stage by stage. But just the complexity of that baby. He's awesome. He's got them 6 legs, and the 2 of them he likes to rub together like this and it pisses people off. I don't know why they get so... I shouldn't say that word. And then it has eyes with all those thousands of eyes on it.
Honeycomb lens. It's a very complicated lens design.
And very efficient flyer.
For those of you who are aware of the new telescope that was launched, that we got all those fancy galactic pictures of, the new version of the Hubble. We used to have the... what was the old one that they... Oh man, I'm drawing a blank because of sleep deprivation. The Hubble. We had the Hubble telescope.
And the Webb.
And the new one is the James Webb.
Yes.
So my old company was a small piece of the supply chain for the James Webb telescope.
Cool.
But the lens design of the James Webb telescope is a hexagonal honeycomb lens, just like a fly's natural eyeball. And
the natural eyeball of the fly just zips like magic out of a disgusting maggot.
But by accident.
You guys had to work really hard.
Like 20 years and like $100 billion over budget to make that lens system work.
So silly that people just go for that. I don't get it. But in any case, we're gonna have a great podcast today. I know some of you are thinking, with talks of maggots and dead animals, it's already great. I know you're enjoying yourself. It only gets better from here, because I have a video of what I think is one of the most I would like to say important speeches given in my lifetime.
By who?
Well, I'll tell you, but I don't know if I can say it's the most important if it doesn't have an impact. So maybe I should say it's one of the most timely speeches because of when it came out. And second, we just want to briefly cover quickly at the end. I'm going to put this at the end or we'll never get to the speech. Divorce and remarriage and marriage from a biblical perspective. That should be
quickly
something light.
We'll just touch on it.
It's a light and happy little subject. Okay, so first up, Danny Krueger. You have not heard of Danny Krueger. Danny Krueger gave a speech in Parliament, and no one was there. That happens, by the way, in our Congress too, our Senate. They'll give speeches and no one shows up because no one's voting on anything. And the speech, though, here's the good part. I don't know if it'll change the world, but it has 3.7 million views on X. And I don't know how many views it has anywhere else. Hopefully it's doing well. But this is going to be a start and stop, Will. And you're going to see why. So you can stop this too anytime you want to comment. Our reason to comment will just be so we can all follow his argument all the way through and think about why it matters to us right now. And I guess I could start off with this. The government of mankind, who governs and how they govern mankind, is not a side note. It is in my life. Like when I grew up as a little kid, I never worried about the government, didn't know what it was, didn't care. But really it's central to the organization and life on earth. You could call the history of mankind, of civilization, the history of war. Because man is always at war, is always fighting. But that's all has to do with governments. And the government, if you read the Bible, it's a story of the government of mankind. And it's a story of peoples and genealogies and nations. And at its heart is the idea of the national identity of Israel being the nation that God put forth first. And then later, the coming of the kingdom of Christ. And when he comes, according to Psalm 2, he comes as a king that God has placed in place over other nations and to crush them. And so what form of government should you have and what should inform it? We all would say you don't want a king because we're Americans. We don't have kings. But
I wouldn't say that, and I'm an American.
I know. Well, and this is something that I never would have thought about years past, but in the days since, recently, I think, well, maybe a monarchy has its place, or it can have its place, but there are other ways to govern. Obviously, we've experimented with communism and socialism, and we as mankind, and they don't work real well. But we're experimenting right now with changing our government in America, and this guy, I think, just puts his finger on it. So that's what this is about. Why is it important? I think you're going to see as we go through it. So go ahead, Sunshine. Start this dude, Danny Krueger. I like any guy who's elected to Parliament called Danny.
And you said this is UK Parliament?
UK Parliament.
Okay.
He'll explain where he is himself, too, by the way. All right.
It is an honour to stand here in this empty chamber to speak about the original purpose of this space, which was a chapel in the Church of England. The old chamber of the House of Commons, on which this space is modelled after the Great Fire of 1834, was St Stephen's Chapel, formerly a royal church, given by the heirs of Henry VIII to Parliament.
Stop right there, please.
As its debating chamber.
So, notice how they say St Stephen's. I don't know if you caught it. He said St Stephen's Chapel. The England has a national church.
Yes.
They broke away from the Roman monstrosity that is Roman Catholicism, not to be mistaken for the Eastern Catholicism, which is just as ancient and has much different traditions. But the Roman monstrosity of papism, having a pope and all the mess that's created, they were the church of all of Western Europe in the 1200s, 1300s, 1400s. I could go before that, but there was a lot of fighting before that, and there was a split, and Eastern Europe went the other way. So, but Henry VIII broke with the Catholics for his own reasons, because he's the king, and they had a monarchy there, and he said, okay, we're no longer Catholics, we're now Church of England. That just meant that the king now became the head of the Church of England. There was no separation of church and state. So when he talks about royal chapels, he means it. He means this is the king's church. Anyway, go on.
Madam Deputy Speaker, your chair stands on the altar steps, and the table with the dispatch boxes is where the lectern stood. And I mention this because the link between this place and the Church of England isn't merely ceremonial. The prayers we say here at the start of every day aren't just a nod to tradition. Our democracy is founded on Christian faith. And indeed, this Parliament remains the law-giving power of the Church of England.
Stop right there.
We in this place have...
Thank you, hon. Did you hear what he said?
The law-giving power of the Church of England.
Yes, he says we are, what he says, they pray first every day, and the prayers we say at the start of every day aren't just a nod to tradition, he said. He says we're a democracy founded on the Christian faith. I think Americans have trouble saying that. Mainly because we like to say there's freedom of religion and therefore you can't say it. We used to say things like that. But it's absolutely true in England. England has a very long history as a nation. Way back when the Romans ran the world, they came and took over a good bit of it. But it was just islands with tribes, many tribes. And those tribes kind of came together over centuries. Really, I don't know my English history well enough so you can correct me. I don't think it was till like the 10th century, like 900 or 1000, which would be thousands, or 1100 AD. When did Alfred live? And really the pressure of the Norsemen, the Danes coming down, people we call the Vikings, coming down and trying to settle among them, or kill them, or settle and kill them, or rob their monasteries and kill them and settle them, or just rape, rob, and pillage, whatever they felt like doing over several centuries, it forced them to have a common enemy.
Unified. Common enemies unify.
And Alfred was... He kept trying to make deals with these invaders. Once he'd vanquished them, he'd say, okay, I'll make you a deal. If you all be baptized as Christians, you can stay or we'll be at peace. And then they'd break the deal, but eventually it stuck. In fact, eventually, forgive me not putting dates on this, but eventually, I think it was it Canute or someone else? One of the leaders of Norway just said, they're right. We got to get rid of these false gods. All of Norway is now Christian. And all of Sweden is now Christian. And Switzerland or whatever, not Sweden. Switzerland and, Sweden. Switzerland is the one that's
under Germany.
Right. All of Sweden,
Finland, Norway.
and Finland, they all said we're all Christians now. So Christianity actually conquered the Vikings. But Alfred brought together many of the tribes, and he did it all under the idea that they were Christian. Now, this was before Henry VIII detached them, but the primitive Christianity of England, it's so primitive that no one knows who brought it there. It was definitely not a Roman papist version of Christianity, although they tried to control it once it became a free place. The Rome tried to control them, but we don't even know how Christianity got there. It got there so early, we don't know. There's no apostle we know of went there. Someone just brought it in. And so they always had a Christian tradition. That's what helped stop them from having false religions. And they unified under Christianity, and they've been unified under Christianity till the modern day. But today they are not. They're not very Christian, just like America isn't. And that's what makes this speech important. He's asking, in our day, how can we hold together if we don't run back to Christian tradition? So with all that thumbnail history,
I'm liking this already.
All right, so
I don't even know where this is going, but
so
amen. I'm on board.
Hit it.
Which is, well, before we even go there, you can't lose sight of the fact that then in the 1400s, as Western Europe comes to the New World,
yes,
like this is the underpinning of how the Americas get settled as unified under Christianity.
Absolutely, without question.
And with Spain in the southern half, and then the colonies from England, like that history of the primordial nature of Christianity in England is how then America ends up being.
Well, in fact, what happened when America came along, what happening in Europe was what we call the Reformation. In the 14, 15, 1600s, you had people saying, we don't have to have a pope. We have the Bible. And they were absolutely correct. But they were getting oppressed by all their leaders. Well, likewise in England, there were people saying, we don't need the Church of England either. We don't need a king running us. And so people were oppressed in all these places. And the But at the same time, these European nations, upon finding out there was a new world, wanted their piece of the pie. So the Spaniards, the French, the Dutch mostly came and went west and settled the Americas. And then, but the English are the ones, the Protestant English were the ones who settled what we call the United States mostly.
Right. So I'm just tying that in because...
And we're the freest by far. Anywhere where the Roman Catholics were in it, they were a mess, they are a mess, they're mostly a mess. But wherever the doggone Protestant English went, the Protestant English, those even protesting the Church of England, wherever they went is a better place to live.
Yeah, and the only reason I bring that up is because, I'm America. I love America.
America first, baby.
I love remembering how we beat the British and screw the king and all that stuff.
Well, we do have 2 Brits on the wall. We've got,
and I'm a big fan of a lot of Brits. I
both
like
of those Brits
guys.
we like quite a bit.
But I just want to say, we're about to listen to a British parliamentarian, but this is what he's about to discuss. I'm assuming, I haven't heard it before, is philosophically the mother of how the ideas that founded America was born.
You're exactly right.
So don't.
And here's the amazing times we live in. The Reformation was made possible, as well as the Renaissance and the Enlightenment. Big changes on the earth was because of the printing press being able to disseminate, and technology making a better printing press. You could disseminate these ideas. Well, this was to an empty chamber, but it already has 3.7 million views.
Yeah, the chamber didn't have to be
So
full.
this speech might end up making an impact. It might not, without even anyone in the room. Go ahead and hit it.
To approve or disapprove the doctrine and the rules of the Church. And that is as it should be, because the Church of England is not some private club, just another eccentric denomination. The Church is the chaplain to the nation, and through the parish system, in which every square inch of England has its local church and its local priest, we are all members, we all belong, even if you never set foot in your church from one year to the next, even if you don't believe in its teachings, it is your church.
Stop right there. This is going to be a history lesson. So he said, did you catch him say, through the parish system?
I'm very familiar.
The church is a chaplain to the nation. What is the parish system?
I still often refer to the congregants of Harvest
parishioners.
Church as parishioners because of my Catholic upbringing.
So what does that mean? Do you know what the parish system is?
You
can guess. You'll probably be right.
I know. It's a geographic break. It's kind of like school districts.
Yes.
So because the Catholic system, which then influenced the Anglican system, the Church of England, because it was total in nature, right? The Protestant Reformation hadn't happened yet, so the government dictated the church breakup, and you have this very strong hierarchy within the church that's connected to the state. It's just like voting districts. Like you have a bishop over top of multiple. Think of them as like school districts. Each school district, just like you have a high school, would have a church. The regional bishop gets to appoint who the priest is at each church.
So the English,
it's a geographic.
The English did a
top-down
non-Catholic version of that. They separated because the king was the head of their church. Not the religious guy, but he was the operational head. They set out the whole nation.
Like me and you. You're the Bishop of Canterbury.
And that's
I'm
right.
like the king.
There you go.
All
I don't know if I like this, but
I like it a lot.
It's not like us. Forget it. Sunshine is the queen here. We're gonna do whatever she says. But they set you out. Wherever you were born, that was your parish, and there was a church assigned to you. Now I don't know whether you could walk to the next parish if you wanted, but everyone is therefore a member of the Church of England. This is much different than the Protestant Reformation that even protested against the English, because the very first Baptists came in 2 streams, and they were both English. And the reason they were called Baptists is because they said, no, just because you're born in a parish doesn't make you a church member. In order to be a true church member, you have to be converted to Christ. You have to go by choice. So it's 2 different views of what a church should have. Should a church have just those who profess Christ, or should it have everyone in the neighborhood? some saved, some not saved, including the children. And but that's neither here nor there. I'm not trying to solve that. But when he says that they're the chaplain to the nation, you're all in a parish, whether you like it or not. You're a member of the Church of England. That structure is still in place there. They don't practice it, but the Queen, or now the King, is supposed to be the head of the church. King's a doggone pagan over there. But he is going to say, what he's saying is this structure is why we are great. And we're at risk right now. So go ahead and hit it, please.
Or its member. And so when I speak of the Church of England today, I am not speaking about the internal politics of the Anglican sect. I speak of the common creed of our country, the official religion of the English and the British nation, and the institution which, older than the monarchy, much older than Parliament, is the institution that made this country. And it is no surprise that both the Church and the country itself are in a bad way, divided internally, confused, badly led. The Church is riven by deep disputes over doctrine and governance, and literally leaderless, with even the process of choosing the next Archbishop of Canterbury unclear, confused and contended. And the country itself reflects this, unclear in its doctrines and its governance, profoundly precarious, chronically exposed to threats from without and within, at risk economically, culturally, socially, and I would say morally.
Okay, stop for a minute. Did you catch that? It's a very well put together message.
Yeah, man, I wish I was a good speechwriter.
He said, our church is leaderless, doesn't know what it's doing, can't figure out what's right doctrine.
And he kept using the word, it's confused.
Confused, and he says our nation is too.
Yeah, and confused is a technical, it's like, we use confused in common day language all the time, but like, yeah, he said profoundly precarious because we're leaderless. We don't even know how to pick the next leader. We don't agree over doctrine. We are stuck at a fork in the road with a bunch of different ways to go, and no one's at the helm
really
to tell us this is the way to go.
Right, and so the Church of England has no doctrine to speak of that makes any sense anymore. They've given up on the biblical approach. And though there are some Anglican priests or vicars that hold to what we would call biblical Christianity, many don't, including the Archbishop of Canterbury. They've caved on sexual issues. Actually, the Queen helped that happen. She endorsed, the Queen of England, the last Queen, actually endorsed for the first time the divorce and remarriage of a royal family member. And she was the first one. Before that, and any Anglophile who can correct me, please do. I think she was the first one. Before that, if you divorced as a royal member of the family, you could never be a part of the church again. You couldn't marry again, I should say. I'm getting it wrong. You couldn't marry and be part of the church. You could stay divorced, but you couldn't marry. And then the Queen undid that, and the Queen actually blessed some same-sex stuff too. And as the head of the church, that turned out to be okay. So you have the Archbishop of Canterbury, their titular head, and
can you explain that a little bit?
He is not. In their system, he is the top dog in the country, but not over all Anglicans all over the world, but just in his country. And there's
he's the lead pastor of the country.
He's the lead pastor of the country, and whether or not you can have female priests and whether or not they're completely confused. They don't know where they're at. The Anglicans of Africa are much more biblical. The Anglicans of Australia are much more biblical, and they are rebuking the English Anglicans these days. But likewise, he's saying the government is not much better. The government, they're leaderless in the sense that they're fighting with Islam because Islamic people are making inroads into their government, and they're fighting with the idea of are we a part of the EU? The people voted them out of the European Union, but many of the leaders wish they were in the European Union. They're fighting with freedom of speech. They don't know if they like freedom of speech. They're arresting people for putting social media posts that some people think are insulting. And so they're a mess too. And there's no moral connection in England or in their church to the historic Christian church or the historic English government, except for tradition and memory. And he is saying that. He's saying, I'm standing in a doggone chamber that was built like a chapel because we're from a church and we are supposed to be Christian, but the only thing left is the skeleton. It's kind of like that skull you held up. The thing is gone. All that's left is the memory of it. All right, hit it.
Madam Deputy Speaker, last month, in the space of 3 days, in one infamous week, this House authorised the killing of unborn children, of 9-month-old babies, and it passed a bill to allow the killing of the elderly and disabled. And I describe those laws in these stark terms not to provoke further controversy, but because those are the facts. We gave our consent to the greatest crime, the killing of the weak, the most defenceless human beings. It was a great sin. And if I, standing here, have any power to repent on behalf of this House, then I hereby repent of what we did. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, in the reaction to these votes, and all around us, in reaction to the state of the country and the world, something else is happening. There is a great hunger in society for a better way of living. And I want to use this opportunity to explain what that better way is, and why we here in England have the means to follow it. The Jewish and the Christian God is a God of nations. He is interested in people as individuals, but also as groups, as communities, not only of kinship, though that too, but of common worship with a common God. And this nation, England, from which the United Kingdom grew, uniquely among the nations of the world, was founded, created consciously on the basis of the Bible and the story of the Hebrew people.
Can we stop 1 second?
In that sense.
I'm stopping a lot because he's throwing out ideas which you may not be familiar with because we're not taught this anywhere else. And he's saying big things. Did you catch any?
Yeah, well, God of nations.
Yeah, so he's saying the God of the Jews and the Christians is a God of nations. What's he mean by that? What would be the
Bible? Bible's a very nuanced story, right? Like at church, we often are thinking individually. A lot of the New Testament is individual in nature. I mean, there's definitely parts in the New Testament where God's dealing with people corporately. We've talked about a lot of that here, but God throughout the story of the Bible deals with people groups as like a corporate entity. And I don't mean corporate like a company, like as a collective body. He deals with them individually as well, which is why there's always a remnant of Israel, saved from calamity, because the individual matters and how the individual responds matters, but it also matters how the group of people respond as a group of people. Israel is a nation and God deals with them as a nation. Israel as a nation is either coming back closer to him or collectively, rebelling against him and moving further away. And then the nation as a whole gets disciplined or has blessings and curses given to it as a collective body, depending on how it collectively behaves.
Yeah, and so you hit on a couple things that I'd like to come back to. Is God deals with us as individuals, but it's always in a context of an ethnos or a group. And those nations have distinctions. To be a nation, what's it mean to be a nation? I mean, what kind of to put it what it's against globalism. Globalism is Babylon, right? Babylon, all the people came off the ark, and as the generations grew, they all spoke the same language, they lived in the same place, they were completely unified, but they were also sinful on the whole.
They were unified in their sin.
And so God separated their languages and therefore created the nations instead of one nation. And we know why from Acts, when Paul said on Mars Hill, God sets the habitations and boundaries of these nations so that people will grope for him. God is not a globalist. Not in the Bible. It's always about the nations. In the Old Testament, we start with Genesis, I'm going to make you, Abraham, into a great nation, and you will bless the other nations. And when he speaks of when he has Ishmael and Isaac, and Ishmael has to be sent out on his own because Isaac is the child of promise. Isaac is going to be the father of a great nation, but so is Ishmael. He's going to be the father of nations too. So groups or tribes or ethnos. And God never gets away from that all the way till the end of the Bible.
Yeah, we just covered this in the Israel episode with replacement theology. Does the church replace Israel? And the answer was no.
Yes, no.
It's always been spiritual Israel. And
yes.
The New Testament's about the coming of the kingdom of Christ, and it's a kingdom. It's a nation. It's a different type of nation. It's now a spiritual in nature nation, but it's a nation no less. Like, we have a king. We're unified under a king. His name is Jesus, and we become brothers and sisters through adoption.
But even so, we're members of earthly other nations.
Yes.
And that's acknowledged even in the book of Revelation, in the permanent state of after this life. People from every tribe and tongue and nation will worship God. He gets glorified because we're in different nations. And the idea that Israel was to rise up as a nation among the nations that the other nations would come to. And then when Jesus finished all his earthly work, before he left, he said, go and make disciples of all the nations. Now, what this contrasts with is the empire view of the world, which mankind always has, right? That's the Bruce Springsteen song, all men want to be rich, rich men want to be king, and a king ain't satisfied till he has everything. And so there's always been people who wanted to run everything, from Nebuchadnezzar to some pharaoh, I can't remember.
To Xerxes.
To Stalin and to Mao. Communism is an empire idea. It wants to wash over the whole world. And globalism is kind of a non-communism, but it has socialistic tendencies, empire that we've seen growing in America, and all Western Europe has been given into globalism. That is why you have all this mass immigration in Europe, and why Biden led it in. Philosophically, why they are believing George Soros has the Open Society group. They believe all borders need to go. So if all borders go, one world is one nation. But God is never like that. All the way to the end of time, He separates us into nations. When he comes back, God says to him, ask of me, I'll give the nations as your inheritance, Psalm 2. And then you shall break them with a rod of iron. They'll shatter like earthenware. Therefore, kings show discernment. So the point is, the King of Kings comes back, and any evil nations, their leaders will be crushed. But so what has that got to do with us? Well, the way humans are governed always matters. It determines the quality of life for the people. And if it has righteous ideas, and even better still, righteous people running it, your country, your nation, no matter how small, is going to be better off than if it has evil people running it. And then it's a matter of degrees. Probably you're better off in a monarchy with a king, no matter how bad he is, over communism, which is a system that will always dehumanize you, whereas, as C.S. Lewis says, a king can get tired. He just doesn't have time to oppress everybody all the time, and so that's what he's talking about when he says our God is a God of nations. And he is not saying something for the religious. He is smashing right into modern day thinking. He is smashing the George Soros, the World
Davos, Switzerland.
What is it? The World Economic Forum.
Yeah.
And he's smashing into all the communist forms of government.
The EU.
Yeah, he's the EU. We are our God is a God of nations. And then he also said that when their nation passed abortion up to the 9th month, just now, their parliament, and some sort of mercy kill, quote, mercy kill, the killing of old people, he said it was a great sin. Now, we never hear our senators talk like that. This was a great sin.
Only a couple.
But he's right. It is a sin, and God is watching, and they're supposed to be a Christian nation.
going back to what he's saying, he's repenting as an individual,
but he can't repent for
but
the
he
nation.
can't repent for the nation. They would have to reverse their decision.
He says, if I could, I am, but I can't.
Yeah.
So then but now he's moving to change. He says, we live in a time when humans long for a better way of living. And I'm going to give you where he's going, so when it comes, you can follow it. He's going to say, we've tried the religion, and I'm going to call it of the United States now. We've tried the religion of secularism,
neutrality.
Let's get the creches and the Christmas scenes off the State House. Let's not have any prayer in schools. Let's get rid of religion, and we'll all love each other. If we could just get rid of religious rule, we'll all love each other. This, by the way, is a strong statement against American libertarianism, even though he's not going to mention that. I'm mentioning it. The idea, Ben Shapiro says, that the state should have nothing to do with defining marriage. He's obviously wrong in my mind, because we all live in one nation, and the way you define family has to be binding, and it has to be consistent with the laws of your nation. And
families are how you make nations.
Right, but
Genesis.
Libertarians say, no, live and let live, whatever, as long as no one kills me. And that's attractive to a secular mindset. But anyway, that's where he's going. So go ahead and hit it.
Can you rewind it like 5-10 seconds just so we...
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Get a running start.
But of common worship with a common God. And this nation, England, from which the United Kingdom grew, uniquely among the nations of the world, was founded, created consciously on the basis of the Bible and the story of the Hebrew people. And in that sense, England is the oldest Christian country and the prototype of nations across the West. The story of England is the story of Christianity operating on a people to make the institutions and the culture that have been uniquely stable, uniquely successful. The Western model was forged and refined in England over 1,000 years, from the 9th to the 19th centuries. So what is that model? It's simply this: that power should arrange itself for the benefit of all the people under it, and specifically for the poorest and weakest. That the law is there to protect the ordinary person against the abuse of power. That every individual has equal dignity and freedom, including crucially the freedom of conscience, of religion and belief, making space for other religions under the Christian shield. A secular space, indeed itself a Christian concept, meaningful only in a Christian world. These are ideas that only make sense if you accept that we have some intrinsic value, a value that is given to us, not of our own making or invention.
Okay, stop it there. You must have a comment on that. If not, I do.
Yeah.
What do you think of this when he said this? I'll set you up. He said, we believe, because of God, that power should be arranged for the benefit of those under it, especially the weak. And he even said that it's in this that you can allow for people having different religions even.
Yes, all of the ideas of the West sit on the bedrock of Christianity. And if you remove Christianity, it's like the daughter eating the mother. Like you can't, the tower will fall if standing on the second floor you start hitting the foundation with a sledgehammer. There's nothing intrinsic about the universe to the belief that protecting weaker people is good, that not forcing people to have a certain conscientious belief or religious belief is bad, apart from a religion, and that religion has been Christianity. Like, go to other places where Christianity wasn't the foundation, and those beliefs were largely not in place. More recent in history, World War II, you already mentioned Stalin, you've mentioned Mao. After that, we didn't mention Hitler yet, but government is instituted in the Bible, which we talked about here before in the Noahic covenant, to have some sort of consequence if the more powerful harms the less powerful. So if man murders man, kind of definitionally, the one who gets killed was proved to be less powerful because he got killed by another guy.
Right.
Then the guy who did the killing, the more powerful, who harmed the less powerful, gets killed himself. That is the institution of government there, in right after Noah lands the boat, and this fundamental belief we see in America's founding documents of unalienable rights, that all men are imbued by their Creator,
with the right to life, liberty, and property,
comes from the Christian ethic of image-bearing nature of humanity.
So to sum this up, I'm sorry to say the same thing in different words. A poor guy, a rich guy can come and take his stuff. Period. You could own land in Mexico. My grandmother actually owned a ranch in Mexico, but then the neighboring guy went and got to know the governor and the land people there, and he paid some mordito, which is blood money, and all of a sudden she owned half her ranch was no longer hers, and there was no recourse, because the richer man who had the richer friends changed the rules, and she had no recourse, nothing she could do. In America, that's called against the law, and you should be able to fight back in theory. And why? Because we think that everybody matters, and the government's job is to respect that individual. But what you're saying, what Will is saying, is that is not normal to human thought.
In fact, it hadn't until the quote-unquote West, until what he's saying, 800 AD to 1800 AD, it was absolutely not. It was not the norm.
No, even in so-called Christian nations, Catholic Christian nations, you never know what you get, but because the king ruled, the Latin for it was lex rex, which is the law is king. It used to be rex lex, which is
the king is
the law. And that's right. And he could say off with your head. And if you look, for example, at Mao, at China today, the people are economic units, and the Politburo or whatever they call their parliament or whoever's in charge, they can do with them what they want to do with them. And no one can stop it. They can literally do anything they want with their population. The powerful people can. And there's no one to stop them from doing it because of the philosophical religious system they have. Even today, when people say, well, we could do better today, it ends in anarchy. The French Revolution happened the same time as the American Revolution, based on the idea that there is no God, that man is born free, and everyone's putting shackles on him his whole life. That's the government and the church and religion
and society.
And that led to, the natural result was what was called the Reign of Terror. People just going crazy, killing one another, and it led to the rise of another attempted empire by Napoleon. In the United States, why do you think you're seeing the riots in the streets several years ago, and there being no philosophical thought process in the government leaders, the educators, nor the media to say why, no, it's not okay that they're burning down the cities. It's not okay that Antifa does whatever they do. Or in the name of Black Lives Matter, you can steal everything, burn everything. They didn't have a thought. They didn't have a philosophical system to say why it was wrong and why you shouldn't do it. In fact, they justified it. They don't even realize that the wealth they have, the freedom they have to be anarchists, comes from the fact they're in a Christian country, which makes it dang convenient because you have all the benefits of the Christian safety that were there. But you're saying they're actually destroying their own foundation. It can only last for so long.
Yes.
And I think that's exactly what he's saying. We're at a moment where if we let go of the fact that power, as he put, should be arranged for the benefit of those under it, he said, which is a Christian idea, then we're left with a thought system that the only thing that talks is power. And I think that's what we saw in the Democrat Party, if I can go ahead and be partisan, under Biden. We don't know who was making the decisions. It didn't matter. They had the power. All the lawfare they did, it didn't matter. They had the power, and they were really pushing forward. Law mattered because they were the law. As you said, as I used to say, you want justice? You got it. It's just us, and we're going to do whatever we want. So what he's saying is we're going to lose Western civilization if we don't return to our Christian roots, our revivalist roots. That's why I think this is one of the most important speeches in my lifetime, because of when he's giving it, where he's giving it, and the correct historical perspective with which he's giving it. Now, if no one listens, no one listens. But I think he's saying the right thing at the right time to the right people.
Yeah, and it
reminds me of Vance when he went to Europe and told them
that.
All, what the heck's wrong with you people?
Which
Remember
we covered
when
on
free
here.
speech was a thing?
We covered on here.
Yeah, we did that
a dozen episodes ago or so. But
and we did that video.
It doesn't even have to. If you abandon Christianity, it doesn't even have to devolve all the way to power for power's sake, right?
It will, though.
It will. But if you think of Germany and the Holocaust, they were still making moral arguments. We're trying to do the most good for the most people.
Well, that's always what might make right says. That's the same thing the communists say.
We're trying to do the most good for the most people.
That's what Mao says
and it'll be the best for all of us and future Germans yet unborn.
For all of us who still are alive.
If we kill all these Jewish people.
Yes. And anyone else. I mean, they were going to kill the black people. They killed the disabled people. If you
the
weren't,
gypsies, the gays,
and
any undesirable.
And this is the way the Russians were under the Soviets. They killed anyone whose thoughts were bad for the benefit of everybody.
Yeah, so you justify.
So they use power is arranged for the benefit of the state rather than power is arranged for the benefit of those under it.
And state is in the biggest definition of the word, like the polis, the people, the collective people. Yes. Yep.
And it turns out that if you do what's best in your mind for the most people, it's not best for the most people, and it's definitely not best for the fewest people.
And it's almost certainly, if not already, in the future going to be used to justify evil against some people.
Yes.
In the name of the good for other people.
And Nazism and evolution are not divorced. Nazism came along and found its philosophical system in Darwin.
Yes.
The idea that, well, if it is survival of the fittest, clearly we're genetically the fittest, and we need to wipe out all the inferiors.
Yeah, and it's a logical conclusion to Darwinism.
It's also
it's only
satanic.
bridled. If you're a Christian Darwinist, the logical conclusion of applying survival of the fittest in the most brutal of ways is only bridled by Christianity.
Right.
So if you eject Christianity and keep evolution, you have no real philosophical argument for not doing what the communists or the Nazis did.
Yeah, you wipe out the weak ones.
Or Mao did, or who was Cambodia? Doesn't matter.
Pol Pot. So it's the same idea, though. So look at it this way. Let's say in our county, if you have evolutionists were half the people, those of us who are real men could go kill them all and take their stuff. Like when that little tiny Prius comes by with the Darwin fish on it, one of our rednecks in a Ford F-150 or a heavy duty maybe could just run that guy off the road, pound him to death, take his stuff, and the guy could say, "Why are you killing me?" And you say, "Because I believe in what you believe, Darwinism, and right now I'm a lot fitter than you, so I'm surviving and you're not." That's the brutality of life by mankind on his own. And you don't have to be a Darwinist for that. That's the way it was since the beginning. That's the way it was in this great country, this great land, when the Indian tribes were here. They were all killing each other. Whoever was the biggest and strongest got the most stuff. It's brutal. And what he is saying is us dignified, civilized people are becoming brutal if we don't turn. Anyway, keep going. Please.
For all these long years, from the time of Alfred to the time of Victoria, it was assumed that a nation was a community of common worship, and that our community, this country, worshipped the Christian God. Then in the 20th century, another idea arose. that it is possible for a country to be neutral about God, that the public space, the public square, was empty of any metaphysics, that the route to freedom lay through the desert of materialism and individual reason, no hell below us, above us only sky. And that idea was wrong, and the horrors of the 20th century attest to that, not least in the West, where we escaped totalitarianism but have suffered our own catastrophes of social breakdown, social injustice, loneliness and emptiness on a chronic scale. And now new threats, ugly and aggressive, are arising, because we have found that in the absence of the Christian God, we do not have pluralism and tolerance, everyone being nice to each other in a godless world. Because all politics is religious, and in abandoning one religion, we simply create a space for others to move into as dominant faiths. And
Amen,
there are two
Danny.
religions moving into the space.
Stop right there, please.
Amen, Danny. I love this guy. I love this guy. Can we elect him here?
Yeah. Could you back him up a little bit?
We should listen to that whole
section again.
It's just so much there.
But before you do, I just want to tell you what he's going to say so that you're ready for it. He's saying it's the belief system that we've entered into in the 20th century, which was last 100 years, was the idea you could be neutral about God and still have a good country. The United States is there. That's what we believe too. And he said we traded in for Imagine. He was quoting John Lennon, who above us there's no heaven, but below us
no hell, and above us only sky.
Right? And he's saying that led to the horrors of the last century, which was world wars, communism.
100 million people murdered at the hands of dictators.
Yes, and then abortion, and now he's saying, look, that he says if you say that you can be neutral about God, you don't lead to a tolerant, pluralistic nation. You know, diversity is our strength. Coexist. No, instead, you get the opposite. And we have the opposite. If you're a Christian, you know it. And then he says, all politics is religious.
Boom. Hey, man.
So go ahead and play that from wherever you backed it up to, and
just
look for those ideas.
I was shouting that the episode we were talking about Christian nationalism a little bit. Like
I think what I didn't like about the term Christian nationalism is it's undefined and loaded.
I agree. I
just think I like the term nationalism.
I agree. But not to have that argument here. But this idea that laws, if government, first and foremost, is about lawmaking, and laws are inherently moral, you cannot divorce government from religion. You can't. It's a religious act to govern.
Yes.
Full stop.
Yep. Okay.
Even if you claim you have no religion, you
can't leave your religion at home.
You're sneaking in a different religion underneath.
The religion of you, or the religion of Satan. Go ahead and hit it.
Christian God. Then in the 20th century, another idea arose. It is possible for a country to be neutral about God, that the public space, the public square, was empty of any metaphysics, that the route to freedom lay through the desert of materialism and individual reason, no hell below us, above us only sky. And that idea was wrong, and the horrors of the 20th century attest to that, not least in the West, where we escaped totalitarianism but have suffered our own catastrophes of social breakdown, social injustice, loneliness and emptiness on a chronic scale. And now new threats, ugly and aggressive, are arising, because we have found that in the absence of the Christian God, we do not have pluralism and tolerance, everyone being nice to each other in a godless world. Because all politics is religious, and in abandoning one religion, we simply create a space for others to move into as dominant faiths. And there are two religions moving into the space that Christianity has been ejected from. One is Islam. And in a debate yesterday, I said how much I find myself in agreement on moral and social matters with Muslim colleagues here in Parliament. But as I've been saying, this is a Christian country, if it is a country at all, and I cannot be indifferent about the extent of the growth of Islam here in recent decades. But it's the other religion that worries me even more, and this other religion is a hybrid of old and new ideas, and it doesn't have a proper name, and I don't think woke does justice to its seriousness. It is a combination of ancient paganism and Christian heresies and the cult of modernism, all mashed up into a deeply mistaken, deeply dangerous ideology of power, hostile to the essential objects of our affections and our loyalties, which are families, communities and nations. and explicitly, most passionately, it is hostile to Christianity as the wellspring of the West.
Okay, stop right there. This isn't that long of a speech, and we keep stopping it because it's thick.
Yeah, you guys should look this up and re-listen to it again.
Or if you listen to us and we're clear, maybe you'll get it too. That's why I'm slowing it down. He said, if you remove the Christian God, you don't get pluralism, but you get an emptiness which other religions will move in. You're going to have a religious country one way or the other. It could be the religion of communism, but he's saying in the West, we don't have that totalitarianism. So what he sees moving in his country is two religions. One is Islam, which he says morally, as he can agree with much, as we all can, because they would hold to
like traditional values. There's a lot of traditional values.
But he makes it clear he can't be indifferent to them. And that was his very English way of saying, we're not Islamic, we can't be Islamic. And he has to be careful because it's now against the law to insult Islam. He could literally be arrested right there on the floor of Parliament or wherever he is, whatever that chamber's called. He could be arrested. And so he said it in a way only the English can, with such high top shelf language that no one could tell. Did he just insult them? But he pretty much did. He said, I'm friends with a lot of Muslims, even in this chamber, but we are Christian, and I'm not going to be indifferent.
He said, if we're a nation at all, we are a Christian nation.
That's right.
Meaning,
like, if
we're not a Christian country, then we're not a country anymore.
But then he said something that gets my end times antenna up.
Ooh. I'm excited.
No, he said the other religion, he said, is a amalgam or a mashup of a hybrid, he said, of old, new. He said it's paganism, modernism, and hereditary Christianity. What does that mean? Hereditary, the worship of the earth. We are to care for the earth, not worship it. That God is love and there is no hell, and God is love. But modernism and paganism, you have the sexual. Paganism was always sexual, and you have the sexual no holds bar things going on. But he's saying there's a new religion out there. He's calling it the hybrid of the old new. This is an antichrist kind of religion. And that's why it gets my end times up. You have to invent something that's not Islam, that's not Hindu, that's not secularism, that's not atheism, and that's definitely not Christianity or Judaism. And he's saying we have that. Now, no one else is calling it a religion but him. But he's going on what you said, Will. There's no such thing as a non-religious governance.
It's not whether you have religion, but which.
And they do have a very strong set of morals. They're not consistent, they're not coherent, but they're definitely there. Where they arrested the one guy for praying outside of an abortion clinic, and the only way, a guy or a gal, I don't remember, the only way they knew he was praying is they asked him, or her, I can't remember. I think she might have just been standing there, and they said, "Why are you standing here? Why can't I stand? What are you doing? Are you praying?" Yes. Okay, so the person was arrested. That's pretty intolerant. Anyway, so that's where he's at. Back that up, if you could, just one notch, just so we get a running start. Thank you.
Ideology of power, hostile to the essential objects of our affections.
Could you go backwards
and
again?
A
little farther back. A little farther.
Combination of ancient...
That's it.
That's good.
Okay, let it play from wherever you have it.
Paganism and Christian heresies and the cult of modernism, all mashed up into a deeply mistaken, deeply dangerous ideology of power.
Ideology
hostile
of
to
power.
The essential objects of our affections and our loyalties, which are families, communities, and nations. And explicitly, most passionately, it is hostile to Christianity as the wellspring of the West. And this religion, unlike Islam, must simply be destroyed, at least as a public doctrine. It must be banished from public life, from schools and universities, from businesses and public services. It needs to be sent back to the fringes of eccentricity, like the modern Druids who invest Stonehenge in my constituency, with a theology that is mad but harmless, because its followers are so few, and no one serious takes them seriously. Now, we can no longer pretend, as they did in the 20th century, that we can be neutral or indifferent about God, that the public square is a godless desert. The fact is that the strong gods are back, and we have to choose which God to worship. And I suggest we worship the God who came in the weakest form, Jesus Christ. This God is a jealous God. It's him or nothing. And we have to own our Christian story, or we have to repudiate it. And not to own it is to repudiate it. And to repudiate Christianity is not only to sever ourselves from our past, but it is to cut off the source of all the things that we value now and that we need in the future. Freedom, tolerance, individual dignity and human rights. Without the Christian God, in whose teaching these things have their source, these are inventions, mere non-existent aspirations. To worship human rights is to worship fairies.
Stop right there.
Our story.
So,
to worship human rights is to worship fairies.
And he doesn't mean Elton John. He means actual mythical creatures. Well, just saying.
You are so quick. You are just so quick.
So
on the trigger.
So did you catch what he said? He's saying what he says is, if you listen to that last bit, it's frightening. He's saying these strong gods, the gods of power, are coming back, and he says we need to destroy this woke, globalistic, hybrid, old, new. And we need to destroy it. He said, and make it like the wackos in my district who go out to Stonehenge and do harmless incantations that nobody cares. We need to make it like that. Otherwise, it will destroy us. And he said we need to choose which God we serve, whether our Christian God or we repudiate him. And now he's saying this is your fork in the road.
Which is kind of like, you don't want to... You can't be lukewarm. I know that's not what that passage means, but it's what it makes me think of. Like, you got to choose a side. There is no neutrality.
Our nation and England, and I'll throw in Australia, and at least Australia, maybe New Zealand, we have been allowing people and allowing ourselves to chop at taking Christ seriously. And these nations have been so strong that they've been able to bear it till now. The question is, will they continue to bear it? I don't think it's accidental. I think God is behind a lot of things. Our nation in the United States, we were becoming totalitarian very quickly and chaotic. I think what God did by bringing Trump back in, and not endorsing him as knowing any of this, God's doing it, it's almost an opportunity to go towards faith.
Yeah, it's a pause. It's like
a pause button.
Here's a chance to hit reverse.
Now the
turn back. Metanoia, to repent. Here's a chance to repent.
To repent. And now he himself is obviously a leaky vessel. He believes in gay marriage and he doesn't seem to understand certain things, although he may be growing. But he did build a faith whatever group. He put a yo-yo in front of it, but at least they're at work. Mike Huckabee is a solid Christian, and he put a lot of solid Christians in other places. And so, yeah, and maybe England is England is much more secular than we are, though. They have few. America has always had a good, strong 10%.
Middle America, Bible Belt.
10%, I'd say. Some people would say, well, 30, 40% are born again. Yeah, I'd say it's a tithe. It's 10% of the people, not 40 or 50%. We're Christians, but in name only very often. But England's given up on the faith, largely. And he's saying, well, we'd better not, or our nation is sunk. And he's using reason to put that forward in an argument that I don't think should be ignored. I think it should be listened to. We'll see if it will be.
It makes me think of, you're going to help me out. The name of the Lord is a strong tower.
The righteous run into it and they're saved.
He's saying the strong gods are back and we got to pick a side.
Yeah.
Now's the time to run into the strong tower.
That's right. Or what you'll lose, what his last line he just said there was, what you're going to lose is that individual freedom and that safety and that wealth that you love so much. You're about to lose it. It won't come back if you ditch Christ. Anyway, that's where he's going. I think we can finish out. We got to be near the end now.
Mm-hmm.
I love this guy.
The real sources of our civilization, we can have these things and make them real freedom and tolerance and dignity, a culture of love, and crucially a culture of humanity, because we are in the age of the machine, and a great choice confronts us, whether to make machines an image of fallen man bent on exploitation and domination with mankind in its sights, or to make them what they properly are, the servants of mankind, able to help us make a better world. So, Madam Deputy Speaker, to conclude, a wind is blowing and a storm is coming, and when it hits we are going to learn if our house is built on rock or on sand. But we have been here before. The reformers of the 11th and the 16th centuries, the Puritans in the 17th century, the evangelicals in the 19th century, all brought this country back from the edge, from idolatry or error or just plain indifference, and from all the social and political crises that indifference to Christianity brought about. And they each in their generation restored this country to itself. And a new restoration is needed now, a revival of the faith, a recovery of Christian politics, a refounding of this nation on the teachings that Alfred made the basis of the common law of England all those centuries ago. This is a mission for the church under its next leader, whoever that is. It's a mission for this place, this old chapel, which became the wellspring of Western democracy, and for us, its members. And it's a mission for our whole country, the route to a prosperous modernity, founded on respect for human dignity, responsibility for the created world, and the worship of God.
Dang.
Right?
He's brilliant.
And
that was to an empty chamber. I mean, there was
like him.
4 or 5 people there. But
I didn't disagree with one thing he said.
He was good.
And I wish I could say it as eloquently.
So, you know what I could do is in the notes we could put you could put a link to that speech, right? Mm-hmm. So if anyone wants to find it and add to its 3.7 million views on X, not to say that that's all there is, because if people share it, I don't know if it keeps the same counter. And if they're seeing it on YouTube or something else, I don't know what that works like. But I'm glad someone's listening to him. That's how I found it. Somebody was listening to him. And it popped up. And yeah.
It's weird times. I mean, I know it just feels like that no matter what, because it's the times I'm living in. I'm sure
it's really, things are changing.
I'm sure World War I
fast.
felt really weird.
Yeah, but I
felt like the world was coming to an end.
There are long spaces of time when any individual nation has relative sameness.
Yeah.
Or routine or stability. And that could be a long period of time from one life, like, say, mine.
Or my dad's.
Your dad's.
My dad's has like the most. My dad was born in 1948.
Yeah. So he missed both world wars. He was too young to go to Korea. If you miss Vietnam and you just live in America.
It's very stable times.
But if you were to go back to 300.
Yeah.
To a place that wasn't being taken over by someone, you could have a lot of stability. But change comes fast with technology. There's, right? I mean, the history of mankind could be the history of war and the history of technology and the history of governments, and you can't separate any of those three. So the technology of today is just lightning speed.
I think everything he said, and it's no surprise because, like I said earlier, we're the philosophical child of England. Man, he could come,
and we influence them.
He could come to the U.S. Congress and give that same speech. I think every single sentence. I mean, it's in different context because we don't have the Church of England here.
No,
but from an idea standpoint, it's all relevant. Like everything he said to the sentence is relevant to the United States.
Yeah, I think it's time for people to say that Islam is not like other religions because it demands a certain government of all the people. And so it needs to be opposed in every non-Muslim state Doesn't mean you couldn't have Muslims in it, but they're going to have to say laws against Sharia, laws against that control their where they get to do their schools, what they're allowed to teach, because they're a rebel force. They're an upstart force wherever they go. I think the Antichrist will agree with that. Personally, I don't know what that Antichrist system is going to look like, but I think wiping out Islam will be high on his list. It'll probably look real good to us Christians because it's a threat. But who knows? Maybe God will extend the springtime of Earth and let some revival break out. He did it when the United States came along. It was a real refresher for the Earth, you know?
Yeah.
They've been all fighting over the same ground in Europe for centuries, and boom, well, got a whole new land. So anyway, America, to be great, must be good, and to be good, it must worship God. So you ready to shift gears, or is your brain tired?
No, I feel warm and fuzzy inside. That was good. That was a hobby horse of mine. You can't do government apart from religion. And I think he was very eloquent in the way he stated it.
Man, that was a beautifully structured speech. It's the kind of speech that's made to be read later.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to follow all that unless you're really tuned in. I loved it the first time I heard it, so I listened to it the second time, and I felt like now I get what he's saying.
It's like a C.S. Lewis book. Like every sentence is dense.
It is. Or like a C.S. Lewis address. I've read one of his sermons that he was a guest speaker for it at some chapel. And I'm like, if you were sitting there listening to that, how are you going to follow? Could you stop?
I've read a few of those recently.
Their
speeches written down.
Yeah, you got to stop. I can't think as fast as you talk.
Yeah.
But maybe because they're British, you know, they're boring, quiet white people with
they all just might have been
vocabularies.
Smarter too back then. I don't know.
Okay. You want to sound smart, you pick up a British accent, unless it's the same kind that Russell Brand has. You found dumb.
All right, what are we talking about? Marriage and divorce? Is
Believe
that really
it or not,
even a big topic around here?
No, nobody cares. So when we were in Luke, and still
Can I
are,
zone out?
16, yeah. Look at Luke 16:18. Jesus says, everyone who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery, and he who marries one who's divorced from a husband commits adultery. Now, I don't want to talk about the context of that, only because that's the subject of another sermon or two. I just want to talk about that statement. It is so definitive. It doesn't talk about any exceptions. If you divorce your wife and marry someone else, you're committing adultery. If you marry someone who's divorced from a husband, you're committing adultery. He doesn't leave any cracks or room or light for exceptions here. Why does he do that? I mean, does this mean just forget about remarriage for the divorced person or not? Well, we know that.
I'm excited to hear your conclusion.
Well, this is true. 100% true. However, it's not doesn't say everything.
It's not complete.
Yes, because we know that marriage ends when one dies. And he's assuming, I guess you know that. Because you can marry another person. You could divorce your wife and she could die. And then you could marry another person because marriage ends when a person dies. And Jesus has no problem with marriage after someone dies. So we know remarriage can be a thing. So is he saying you cannot remarry ever if your ex is alive? Now, what he doesn't say is, he says if you divorce your wife and marry someone else, you're committing adultery. And he says if your wife marries another person, she's committing adultery. But what if your wife marries someone and she's committing adultery? Are you now free? Can you go ahead and marry someone else? I mean, is it whoever marries first is committing adultery, or both parties? I had a friend once whose wife left him for, and I'm not going to mention any names, someone in another country. And I actually contacted that person and told him to leave her alone. She's another man's wife. What you're doing is morally wrong. And he told me that there had to be some short piers in America of which I could take a long walk off of. He pretty much said, get lost. I don't want to hear your opinion. She's here by choice. But I meant it. That's another man's wife.
But once she adulteresses with that man, does that break then the marriage covenant for the husband who got left?
Well, if by marrying that person or sleeping with that person, again, he doesn't answer that question here.
Are we going outside of Luke 16 in this conversation?
I don't think we can talk about it without doing that.
Okay.
So let's look at a couple other places.
Where do you want to go first?
Matthew 5.
Gotcha.
32. You can read that if you want.
Starting in 31, Matthew 5. It was said, whoever sends his wife away, let him give her a certificate of divorce. This is Jesus quoting the Old Testament.
Yeah.
But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of unchastity, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery.
All right.
But I say to you that everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason of unchastity, makes her commit adultery. And whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery.
Okay. Whoever
divorces his wife.
Except for the reason of unchastity. Very interesting translation. This word here, called unchastity, has many different translations. And you might say, why? Depending on the translation you look at. Let me see what is. See if I can get a couple of them, see what they say. Where's my parallels? I don't want those. Yeah, maybe I do. Let's see this. What verse was that? Unchastity?
32. Fornication, sexual immorality, sexual sin.
Sexual immorality, fornication, sexual sin. The word is porneia, from which we get the word porn or pornograph. Pornograph would be, graph is to write or to draw. So pornography is to draw sexual things, I guess.
Yeah, sexual images.
Sexual images. And so what sin is he talking about when he says except for the cause of porneia? Because he seems to be given an exception here. He's saying who...
It doesn't seem to. It says except for.
He is giving an exception. I say to you, everyone who divorces his wife, except for the reason makes her commit adultery. Is he saying that she's already committed adultery, so he can't make her? But is he still allowed to remarry? He's not saying anything about that. It's right. Are you picking up what I'm saying?
Yes. Is he making like a logical argument? Claim that, like, well, if she's already an adulteress,
you can't make her.
You can't really. She's already one.
Yeah, you don't get the blame of making her one. She did that herself.
Right.
Whoever marries a divorced woman commits adultery. Again, it's very ironclad. Now I
take the exception since he says for the reason of
adultery.
I think that
it goes backwards to the who. If it goes to the first half of this. Of the saying, I say everyone who divorces, then that person is not committing adultery.
Right.
But if he's going for her. So then he does quote Deuteronomy 24. So we should look there. Okay. This is the law of Moses.
24, 1 through 4?
Yes. It says, when a man takes a wife and marries her, and it happens that she finds no favor in his eyes, because he has found some indecency in her. What indecency? We're not told. I think the very first thought would be the same as in Matthew, that she is unclean by purpose of sleeping with someone else. But it doesn't have to be that. It could be other reasons, apparently, but I don't know. He says if she finds no favor in his eyes because of some indecency, and he writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out from his house, and she leaves his house and goes to become another man's wife, and if the latter husband turns against her and writes her a certificate of divorce and puts it in her hand and sends her out of his house, or if the latter husband dies who took her to be his wife, then the former husband who sent her away is not allowed to take her again to be his wife, since she has been defiled. For that is an abomination before the Lord, and you shall not bring sin on the land. So here you have Moses writing in the law that when you divorce your wife, you're going to give her a piece of paper or parchment or some certificate that proves that she's no longer legally bound to you. That makes her free to marry. The whole point of the certificate of divorce is she can marry another person. And the only exception he gives here, or he doesn't even give an exception, it seems like his whole point in saying this is don't go back to the first husband.
Yeah. Or the husband, once your adulterous wife marries the next guy, presumably the guy that the adultering took place with.
Yes.
And he dies or he doesn't like her anymore, you can't take her back. If you're going to reconcile before you divorce.
Which means that second marriage, though it is somehow spiritual adultery in some sense, according to the New Testament, is still seen by God as a marriage.
So let me break that down. Because of the Matthew 5,
Jesus says if you marry a
Jesus
divorced
is quoting
woman,
this passage.
He says if you marry a divorced woman, yeah, I tell you.
He said, Moses told you this.
Yes.
If your wife sleeps with somebody else, give her a certificate of divorce so she can go marry the other guy.
No. He says, if you divorce your wife except for the reason of unchastity, we don't even know if it's the same reason.
I'm saying in verse 31, he's quoting this.
Yes.
And then he's saying, but, as
all
like in
it
contrast
says here,
to.
all he quotes is whoever sends his wife away, let him give her a certificate of divorce. So he's talking about you can divorce your wife. And obviously they are divorcing her for another reason besides his exception, or he wouldn't have to teach on it. So let me say it this way. He says it was whoever sends his wife away, let him give her a certificate of divorce. They must be divorcing women.
Yes.
But not for porneia.
For the reason, and that is the
reason why is he gives that as an exception.
And that's the common reason between Moses and Jesus.
Maybe.
It seems to be.
No, it just says.
Well, Moses is talking about indecency.
We don't know what he means.
Wow.
You don't know. What if she wasn't a virgin when you married her?
Okay.
That
we don't know for sure, but Jesus clearly.
She could worship another god.
Jesus is clearly saying.
Yes. So he's saying when.
Infidelity.
So he's quoting Moses. So you have to think that the practice of the day is you can give your wife
a certificate of divorce.
And he's not mentioning why. Obviously, there are other reasons besides unchastity, right?
Yes.
Otherwise, he wouldn't say with one exception. He says that you're making her commit adultery. So let's say you give your wife a certificate of divorce and she marries another person, and it is adultery by Jesus's talk because you didn't fit the exception. She's still married to that second guy. It seems.
From Deuteronomy.
Yeah, you don't go back to your first husband. She could go to a third husband, but she can't go back to the first husband. That's over. The Pharisees once came to him and said a certain woman had a husband, he died, married another, and so on. So they accepted the idea that someone could die and marry several husbands. She could have a bunch of husbands if they kept dying. But you can't go backwards in the order. Okay? So that's what the law says.
Even if Jesus said, even if you shouldn't have gotten divorced in the first place because you didn't divorce over infidelity, the Deuteronomy passage says going backwards is an abomination.
You can't go in the backwards. If she doesn't find favor in your eyes, and you kick her out. So then he goes, right. Now, if you were to jump to Matthew 19, obviously Jesus speaking these words, and he probably spoke them in many villages because it's in more than one place. And people are really struggling with this. In fact, the struggle is in this chapter here. But this is many chapters later, chapter 5 to 19. He's getting questioned about this. Verse 1, when Jesus finished these words, he departed from Galilee, came to a region of Judea beyond the Jordan, and large crowds followed him, and he healed them. And some Pharisees came to Jesus, testing him and asking, is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason at all? So here what you have is they think it's a test for him. Probably, we're going to have to guess here, because they've heard him teach on divorce. And they don't agree with him. Why wouldn't they agree with him? By this time in Israel's history, divorce was tightly controlled by the Pharisees, but they had rules. And obviously, whatever he was saying wasn't their rules. Does that make sense?
Yes.
In fact, they say at that time that one of the famous, it was Gamaliel or the other guy, Hillel or whatever, one of the guys, famous Pharisees, had written, you should not divorce your wife. You should stick with her, except if she sleeps with someone else. And another one said, no, she can burn the food regularly. And if she won't obey and make better food, you can divorce her. So there were fights.
I like that one.
You don't or do?
I do.
Oh, yeah, your wife. We're going to tell your wife you said that. You better cook good, honey. There's a lot on the line. Sunshine, do you often burn the top ramen or what?
No.
No, so he'll keep you, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's working on making him chunky, remember?
Yeah, that's
she's
right.
She's a good cook.
So is it lawful for a man to divorce his wife for any reason? That's a test question. In other words, they don't care about his answer. They're trying to catch him. And his answer is a question. He said, have you not read, which is always insulting to assume that the experts of the Bible haven't read the Bible. And so he says, but that's how he puts it. Have you not read that he who created them from the beginning, created them, made them male and female? And he quotes Genesis for this reason. Genesis 2:24, a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh. So they are no longer two, but one flesh. What God, therefore, has joined together, let no man separate. So his answer is to, haven't you read the book of Genesis where it says that the two are one? If God joins two people together, do you think it's okay for you to divorce your wife for any reason at all? No, you can't do that. Now the answer in verse 7 said, wait a minute. Why then did Moses' command give her a certificate of divorce and send her away? And he answers, because of the hardness of your heart, Moses permitted you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning, it has not been this way. What do you think that's all about? What do you learn from that, verse 8?
Yeah, that the allowance in Deuteronomy for divorce is only because of your fallenness. No matter what the circumstances is, it would be more optimal, be better if you reconciled. It's only because you're hard-hearted people that you want a way out of not reconciling.
And they're looking for other reasons besides, because he's going to go there again with the exception. The very next, I say to you, whoever divorces his wife except for immorality, again the word porneia, and marries another commits adultery. So they're not talking about adultery. They're talking about those other reasons, whatever they are. Whatever they are. Can a man divorce his wife for any reason? And he's saying, of course not, because the two are one and God has joined them. And then they say, well, how come Moses said we could? Now you say we can't. They think they've caught him. Moses said something. You're contradicting Moses. You must be wrong. And he said, no, Moses had a reason. And that was, you were going to divorce her anyway. So there had to be a legal system in your nation of Israel for how to free her to marry another, especially in a time when families were much more central. Today in our autonomous individual time. It doesn't really matter who you married so much. But back then, it determined your wealth, your clan, where you lived, everything, who you married. And the woman needed to be freed up to marry another man. So a certificate of divorce did that for her. And that's why you gave it to her. She didn't give it to the man. The man gave it to the woman. It kind of went one direction. So he was saying, your hearts are hard, but from the beginning, it has not been this way. From day one, marriage was supposed to be one man, one woman becoming one person. And so he repeats his command that he said earlier in Matthew, back in chapter 5, whoever divorces his wife except for immorality and marries another woman commits adultery. The disciples said to him, well, if the relationship of a man and wife is like this, it's better not to marry. What are they saying?
These rules are too tough.
So divorce.
What if I just fall out of love with her, Jesus?
Yeah. What if she burns my toast? Divorce and remarriage was a problem for them too. And then he goes to another answer that I'm not going to get into right now, because it's about whether or not you should remain single. And that's, as interesting as that is, that's a whole nother rabbit trail. But he pretty much says you can stay single if you want to. You don't have to marry if you don't want to, which is not the answer they were looking for. They're like, no, I want to get married. I just need to be able to put her away if I don't like her. So what do we do with all this? When we come back to our Luke, everyone who divorces his wife and marries another commits adultery. He was poking at the Pharisees here. And he's telling them, you guys are teaching things that are wrong. You're teaching that a man can just get a new wife and it's not a problem. They say, I'm telling you, the two of you are one. And you can't just do that. Now, there is this exception of adultery or porneia, whatever that is. So if your wife already is sleeping with someone else, apparently, you can divorce her. You can give her the certificate of divorce. That's what I'd argue. Some argue no. John Piper says no. This was only put in there because Joseph wrote a certificate of divorce for Mary when they were betrothed. And so Matthew wanted to make sure the Jews understood that Joseph didn't do a bad thing, and that her porneia was simply she showed up pregnant when he hadn't slept with her. Therefore, he was justified if in the betrothal period, before he had consummated the marriage, he divorced her. So this is John Piper's view. I think it's a stretch. It's not an unknown view, but I think it's a stretch. Could be true. Only if while you're engaged, she has sex with another man, can you divorce her. That's John Piper's view. I don't think it holds water. I think it's weak.
You want my
view? You're here.
I take your stance that I think it's an allowable exception. But we learn from Paul elsewhere the mystery from all time of what marriage is meant to represent, which is Christ's love for the church.
Yes.
And when I, as a husband, think about that, that the man is the head of the house and Christ is the head of the man, that if the whole point of marriage is to point the world to,
Savior,
the Savior and the love of the Savior for us sinners, the church was an adulteress from the beginning, and Christ demonstrates his love for us in that while we were yet
sinners,
adulteresses, he died for us.
That's a great insight.
And so, although I might have, if you view it like the law, I might have a legal exception allotted to me by Christ, I think it's not the optimal answer. I think if you can die to yourself enough, I think you would want to always make room for the redemption of a broken marriage,
especially
or the reconciliation of a spouse.
When you're still dating, which is what he's basically saying. I think that's a great argument. And Hosea in the Old Testament was told to marry a woman who was of bad reputation because she was of bad reputation, because he wanted to demonstrate through Hosea what his love is like. And then she would go out with other men after being married, and he had Hosea go and buy her back.
Yeah.
So the Christian man doesn't have to divorce his wife because of unchastity, but he might.
And
he might.
And he might after some time of trying to reconcile. But I would encourage any man or woman that was in this position where the spouse was unchaste, I would want to encourage them to some point, they got to decide individually to not take advantage of this exception, at least right away, to want to try to reconcile.
To make sure that you've done your best to bring it back together, even if she's left you for another man.
Because that's what Jesus does for us, right?
Yeah.
While the world is spitting in his face and nailing him to a cross, he says, forgive them, Father, they know not what they do.
That's right.
And that's what marriage is trying to embody, is that love.
To overcome is a positive thing, I agree, 100%. But there can be an argument that some people make that, for me, the way I see it, they'd say, he may have the right to divorce her, but he should never marry again if she lives. And there's a lot of people who hold that position, actually. I know someone who holds that position, and his wife left him and married another man. And still, he refuses to consider marriage because she lives.
Which means, in his mind, I don't know this man, but I think I know the argument, there's always an opportunity for reconciliation as long as she's still alive. She could, at some unknown point, even when they're old and gray, repent and come.
And there's almost the implication that the other man and her are in a ongoing, permanent adulterous state. And that is a hard question. He says you're committing adultery. What if a woman leaves a husband who's faithful, marries another man? It's clear she's committing adultery. Jesus said so. But is it a forever adulterous state? Or is it always an adultery against the one man, but it's always a holy marriage under the second man because of the law of Moses? It's hard, isn't it?
It's very hard.
And also, in this case, the guy is a New Testament Christian. If the other fella dies, which he did, by the way, can she come back to him? Well, Moses says no. But then he could say, well, we're not in the Old Testament. Why do you think it was an abomination under Moses to go back to the first husband? If a woman is divorced by her husband, so she marries another man, and then he dies, she can go marry another man, but she can't go back to the first. That, the Bible says, is an abomination. Why do you think it's an abomination? I mean, that's bad. That's not even a don't do this.
It's disgusting to God.
Yes. To go back to the first husband.
I'm on the spot. I
don't have an answer.
My guess would be is like not knowing the reason that they were giving divorces is that like you two have already proven that you didn't mean it.
I don't think that's enough for an abomination.
Yeah, I know. That's why I was trying to get.
I don't think there's an easy answer. My only guess goes back.
But they have already proven that they didn't mean it.
My only guess goes back to what you said before. The marriage reflects Christ in the church. Or at least in the Old Testament, they would understand marriage reflects God in Israel.
Yes.
And to connect with another man means she's not yours. She's gone on, and you shouldn't do that. It's a hard one. So, but for the modern man who's outlasted his wife's second marriage, whether through divorce or death, can he take her back? That's a hard question. I'm not going to answer that one because I don't know. And I would just, if you ask me, I'd say just don't, move on. That's what I'd say. Now, in verse 9 of chapter 7 of 1 Corinthians, Paul speaks about marriage, and he hits a little bit on this, and I think we need to take a look at it. 1 Corinthians 7:10, he says, To the married I give instructions, not I, but the Lord. So he's saying, this isn't my opinion. And the reason he said that is a couple verses before. He said, it's my opinion that it's good to be single, so why don't you do that? But he's saying, that's not the Lord saying you have to be single. That's just me. Here he's saying, this isn't me. This is the Lord. That the wife should not leave her husband. But if she does leave, she must remain unmarried or else be reconciled to the husband, and the husband should not divorce his wife. So he's talking within the context of the church in this. So he's talking to Christians. And he's saying, if a Christian husband has a Christian wife, the wife shouldn't leave. And the husband shouldn't divorce. And notice that it's put differently. Again, it's from the male has the strength position. He's divorcing the wife. The wife, it just says leaves the husband. But nevertheless, it's a similar thing. I've seen many times people in the church say, I can't live with my spouse anymore for this reason, blah, blah, blah. And there's no unfaithfulness. And I'll say that's fine. If you're going to separate, it's not good. But if you do, you realize that God is telling you don't marry another person. And for the rest of your life. and he's saying to both of you, both the husband and the wife, should not remarry. Now, what happens if you do that? And why would you separate from your husband or wife? Well, because you're not getting along. It's back to the hard argument. If you leave your wife or your husband, doesn't mean you've lost your salvation. You're obviously still in the church, and you're still married to him, as long as you don't marry someone else, right? Mm-hmm. So, and that happens. Some people don't get along, and you say they should be able to. I agree. They should be able to in Christ if both are obeying Christ. But I can't make a decision for another person whose house they're going to stay in. A pastor can't do that. They have to do that for themselves. And it leaves open the door for reconciliation. She can come home, or he can come home. The husband shouldn't divorce his wife either if she leaves him. Remain unmarried. And I think we should say that to people. You got this Paula White woman who, on her second marriage, she was the head of a megachurch with her husband, Randy and Paula White. That's where she gets her name. And they were both pastors, of course, and they both divorced each other without cause. And then they both, I think, have gone on to remarry. I know she has. Well, she's disobeying this. She was disobeying it to be the pastor of a church. But she's outright just setting this aside. I think the modern Christian would say, look, if you're divorced, you're divorced. You're free to remarry. In the eyes of the law, you are. You're not free to remarry in the eyes of God. Well, what if I just do it? Well, then we're back. I have a very close friend who divorced his wife because of his infidelity. Again, I'm not going to give the name. And then he fell in love with another woman who I thought was perfect for him. But I told him, look, if you're going to marry this girl, please don't ask me to officiate the wedding. And I don't, to this day, know how his wife took that, because he ended up marrying her. I said, only because you're giving me a conscience problem, because your wife hasn't run off to another man. You were unfaithful, and she's not married, and you both claim to be Christians, so you need to go back to her or not be married. And he says, I respect your conscience, and he went and married the girl, and they're very happy now. And they can say, well, see, I finally found the right one. You can say whatever you want. You're disobeying the word of God. And what do? Do I treat him as anathema? No. And he doesn't go to my church, so it doesn't matter. But I treat him like a brother. This is divorce and remarriage is just messy, because people do what they do. Just to make it even worse, verse 13, and a woman who has an unbelieving husband and consents to live with her, she must not send her husband away. So apparently there were women saying, well, I believe in Jesus now, and you worship pagan gods, because back then they wouldn't be atheists. They'd believe in something. And she says, I can't have you raising the kids with a pagan god now that I'm a Christian. If you don't want to be a Christian, you need to go away from me. And it says, no, for the unbelieving husband is sanctified through the wife. That doesn't mean he's saved. What it's saying is God is blessing the household because she's a Christian, and the children can be raised in the knowledge of the Lord, even though he's there. That's what he's saying. For the unbelieving wife is sanctified through her believing husband. Otherwise your children are unclean, but now they're holy. Just set aside for him. But if the unbelieving one leaves, let him leave. The brother or the sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God has called us to peace. So verse 15 is interesting. If you're married to someone and you become a Christian and he goes, well, that wasn't the deal when I married you, and he leaves you, if you're a woman, or vice versa, the girl leaves you, it says you're not under bondage. So, by contrast, he just said if your unbelieving spouse stays, fine. Stick with them. But if that person leaves, you're not under bondage. Does not under bondage mean you're free to marry? It's very strong language, not under bondage. Sounds like freedom.
Yeah.
For how do you know, O wife, whether you'll save your husband? This is against missionary dating. It's saying don't keep pursuing him. If he ran away, you don't know if you're going to save him. Or how do you know, O husband, whether you'll save your wife? If they leave you because of the cross of Christ. You don't have to stay hooked to them if they won't stay hooked to you. So with all this, can a man who divorces his wife remarry?
Depends on the circumstances.
It's really hard. The easiest way to say this is no, not if she lives, no matter what she does, like my friend said. Now, when I say easy, that doesn't make it right. It's easier to go to a consistent extreme than to remain in the center of biblical tension, as Robertson McQuilkin says. The question is, what does the Bible say? So,
it seems to say, see if you agree, from the Matthew text, Jesus, red letters, that if your spouse stepped out on you, and the language I have heard as a Christian is thereby breaking the marriage covenant.
Yes.
That is the exception for you to be able to remarry, if that's how you take Jesus's directions in Matthew 5 and 19. That's
right.
The one exception.
I agree with that. That's what I think it's saying. Now, there are others who say, no, you should still not remarry, like my friend, but I don't think you can do the wrong thing by going to that consistent extreme, but that doesn't mean you're doing the only thing you can do. I think you can remarry.
It's a safe extreme. If you never remarry,
then you never have to worry about offending God.
Yes. And I also think it's, well, to a point, it's most emblematic of the love of Christ. He never moves on.
It is and it isn't. What if she's on to her second husband?
Yeah, right. I said, and that's where it's to a point. Right away, if you're continuing to leave space for reconciliation, saying you want to reconcile, she says she doesn't, you leave space, and it's, who knows, it's now, she's been remarried for 10 years and has 3 other kids with somebody else. Well, maybe then you take advantage of the exception allotted to you. Yeah, and I would say if you had kids that are yours, I don't know. There's a lot of nuances.
There's a lot, and let's mix it up a little bit. I had a friend, 2 of them actually, who were pastors in a group of pastors I met with in New Jersey, and one of them was telling me that in his church he had a couple who had children who were not married. And that was getting in the way of their membership, but they're faithful at the church. And I said, well, why not just encourage them to get married? And he said, well, because they're divorced. And the other pastor sitting there with us was right. They're very fundamentalist. And if you're divorced, you cannot remarry.
But they already got kids together.
They have kids together. I think, okay, let's say their spouses were saints and never harmed them, and they each left their spouse, But now they live in the same house and they've created children who call them mommy and daddy. Again, am I wrong as a pastor for saying to them, you need to marry each other? I don't think I am. Why do I say that? Because when Jesus says, what God has joined together, let no man separate. He didn't say no man can separate. He said, don't do it. But obviously there can be separation, because in the law, he said, you've married a second husband, don't go back to your first. He's honoring that second husband, or at least that second marriage. Not because it started out good.
And not because it's the right not because it's optimal, but this is where we're at.
This is where we're at. And so I would also say this is there's people wondering. I once preached on this years ago at Harvest, and I don't remember how I ended up. I don't preach on this all the time. It's as I come to the text. I'll teach it all the time, because you always need to talk to couples about marriage. But this guy came up to me and says, from what you're saying, I should never have married my wife. And I didn't ask him the details. I don't remember what he said. I guess he left his wife and married her, and there was no without cause or whatever. And
you said yes.
Well, what I said was, well, here's good news. You're married now.
Yeah, you can't go back.
If you're married now,
best thing you can do is honor the new marriage.
Honor that marriage.
You didn't honor the first one.
Honor this one.
Honor the new one.
Stick with this one. Then there's the other case. People come up and say, what about if I divorced my wife before I got saved, and now she's still on her own? My answer to that is, would she come back to you if you pursued her? That's number one.
Because you can't live in fairyland.
Two, you better have a clean conscience. And three, I may not do the wedding. You might get married, because that's a harder one for me. If you wronged her and left her, but you didn't marry and she didn't marry, I think you're still married. Now, if you had been together and you became a believer and she left you, maybe you're free. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying you left her. So you should go try to win her back. And that could take a while, if at all. And
then maybe you shouldn't remarry.
But once people get married, this was all black and white to me before I was a pastor. Everything was going to be easy and cut and dried. But people do what people do, and they marry who they marry, and they make babies with whom they make babies. And there's a certain practical reality of the hardness of people's hearts. Once they're married, I assume I, as a pastor, have to simply say, these two people are married, provided they're male and female, not male and male. And this is the one we start with, since I know you now. I have had times where I haven't done weddings for people where another pastor would do it. I had one person who came to me, and another pastor said, hey, so-and-so wants you to do the wedding. I said, I'm done marrying that person to any other people, because I just didn't feel like it was stable and it would last, and I'd seen how the person behaved, and no, I'm done. I don't think.
Why are you saying these words again?
Right.
You
so
didn't
this
care
pastor,
about the words you said the first.
This pastor said, I
times.
believe that this is of the Lord. I'm going to do it. So he married him, and they are divorced.
Oh, great.
So every once in a while you get, I told you so. I told you. I told you. But so it is complicated. But I think ultimately the value of marriage is I started that sentence wrong. Let me start it this way. The world we live in has no understanding of the value of marriage. Neither does the church. Getting married is a very valuable and important thing to do, unless God doesn't give you a spouse or you don't want any spouse at all, which is fine. But most people do want one. They don't want to be alone. You say, I don't want a spouse, I want a girlfriend. That's wanting a spouse. And it's important that you stick with it, because it is the building block not only of society, but it is the central definition of humanity, to be male and female. It's the first definition.
And it also, it's a big deal when Paul uses language like, I forget, I wish we could go there. It's the great revealing of a secret.
It's Ephesians 5. I'll get it for you while you talk.
It's the great revealing of a secret in Ephesians 5.
He said
that marriage is to teach us about Christ and the church, which we talk about all the time here, is the ultimate reality. At the end of time, the church is what's left, the bride of Christ.
That's right.
And so you want to talk about, like, how do I better understand the importance of marriage? Well, think about it as the symbol, the tangible symbol we have on this side of the new heavens and new earth of Jesus's love for the church and the church's adoration of Jesus.
And you said that correctly. Your marriage is a symbol of something permanent. Your marriage is temporary. It's a moment. It's fading. I don't care if you're married 60 years before one of you dies. It's only for a moment. It's a vapor like your life. And it's a symbol of a real marriage. And there is only one real marriage that lasts forever. And that's why Paul says, as you mentioned, in Ephesians 5:31, he quotes Genesis 2:24, "For this reason a man shall leave his father and mother and shall be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one." Then he says, "This mystery is great, but I'm speaking with reference to Christ and the church." So he's saying the reason men and women marry from Adam and Eve on is because Christ is marrying the church.
And so
that's why it's holy matrimony.
I'll leave you with a hard statement. I think we could close on this maybe. If you're tempted, in the moments where we're all tempted to say, like, is it really that big a deal if I give up on my marriage?
Not me, Lori. I've never said that. Forget it. Don't listen to a word he says.
Lori's never thought that about you either.
No, she's always thought, what a guy.
If you want the weightiness of that thought, do you want Jesus to give up on you?
Oh my gosh. Well, he's not going to.
Well, right, but that's the symbology, right?
Yes, and I think the magic of it, to use a C.S. Lewis use of magic, is deep. It becomes that sign of true marriage becomes the real life flesh and bone government, which maximizes the possibility that your children will be blessed.
As 1 Corinthians.
As a child of divorce, you can survive. I'm not trying to condemn people who've been through this, but I will say it's not optimal. Optimal thing would be if my mom and dad had committed themselves to Christ the day before they decided to divorce, fixed things, loved each other, and
died to themselves,
and showed me and my brother an example, and we saw that. Instead, we had to sort out what it meant to be a child with several extra parents running around, or a couple of them, and who we are and how important we were, and it was difficult for all of us, and it's difficult for every family that divorces. Obviously, divorces are going to happen, and because people don't behave. That's why. And so I'm not saying a non-behaving person, like someone who beats his children, that you need to stay with that person. You shouldn't. You should protect the children, and that's the way it goes. And you got to tough that one out. But when two people who could, for all other reasons, be decent people and halfway decent parents, it's better for the child. It had been much better for me and my brothers. Now, that would have meant other people who were in my family wouldn't exist, literally wouldn't exist, two of them, or wouldn't be connected to me. That's two others. But that's up to God. I can't fix that. The terrarium that's proper for the growth, the environment that's proper for the growth of the human child is a loving father and mother who are married to each other. And it's deep magic. You cannot simply undo that. You cannot remove what a father gives and what a mother gives, nor can you replace it with two men or two women or all this just insanity that we accept as normal. Nor can you replace it with absent moms and dads. I would urge everyone listening, if you are a mom and you have a child, plan, if at all possible, to be the chief nurturer of that child for at least the first 4 years of its life, because your husband cannot replace you. And and your husband needs to allow for that. He needs to say, it's okay if we live here or there because that's what I can afford, and to work hard to make sure it works. This has nothing to do with whether or not a woman's free to be in the marketplace. Of course she is, and it's a good thing. But what I am saying is the optimal way to raise your children is through a married couple. And that is how you produce future moms and dads and husbands and wives, and that's how you build a healthy society. It is God's way, and God is good and redemptive when we do it wrong, but it's not optimal and it's not good to do it wrong. So anyway, so if you're married, stay married. If you're on your fourth marriage, stay married. Make this the final one. And don't kill your spouse thinking that's an exception, right? That's something we didn't talk about. You can just kill your spouse, kill your husband, and then you can marry another man. No, I guess you could marry another man, but you have committed a greater sin. I think murder is greater than divorce.
And then we would be advocating for your capital punishment. So.
Yes, which we wouldn't get. And you'd probably get conjugal visits with all kinds of groupies if you played your cards right. The world is twisted.
It's weird. All right.
That's enough of that.
See ya, everybody.